Like I said, you gotta drink to numb the pain. I mean, thankfully it's over, so the pain is pretty much over. But I had to drink plenty throughout the episode, trust me. Because it is official. This show is the Star Wars equivalent to constipation. You sit there and just wait for something to happen, and you're hoping something's happening, and it's painful to sit there waiting for something to happen, but nothing ever fucking does. And you're wondering what the other equivalent is? It's Rise of Skywalker. Too much shit happening and you want it to stop. So, other than shit jokes, how many literal shit jokes? What happened in the finale to this apparently amazing show if you look at all the shill sites that even they are admitting that this show is not getting a season 2? Well, it's fucking awful. Nothing happens throughout pretty much the entirety of the episode, yet again. I mean, once again, much like the other episodes, technically stuff happens, but one, none of it's interesting. Two, none of it makes any goddamn sense and is convoluted as all fuck. And three, no, that's it. You don't care and it's already convoluted that even if you did care, you'd probably lose interest at some point. Basically, the entire episode, once again, is trying to paint the Jedi as villains. I fucking hate this. You know, the Jedi that you've been rooting for ever since 1977, or however long you've been watching Star Wars. Yeah, the Jedi who have always been the heroes of the franchise. Yeah, yes, they've done morally gray things, but honestly, that makes it a lot more interesting. And the entire point of the Jedi is that they're flawed. That's why they were so easily taken out in Revenge of the Sith. Because they were too arrogant and it led to their own demise. But they were not villains. And let me get this 100% clear. Is that I am 100% on the Jedi side in this. Is it Sol? Is that his name? The Asian Jedi we've been following this entire time? I am 1000% on his side the entire time. Because nothing he did was wrong. Absolutely nothing. I mean, you could say that hiding these witches from the rest of the Jedi was a bad thing, but one, that was this character's fault, the Carrie-Anne Moss Jedi's fault. She came up with that idea in was it the last episode or the episode before? Honestly, it doesn't even fucking matter. I think it was the last episode, though. And B, he had every right to hide what happened from the Jedi, because you know exactly what would have happened with the Jedi being, even though the Jedi preach patience and everything, it's one of their major things, the Jedi in general, they would have freaked the fuck out if they heard about something like this, especially what went down there. They would have been sent into a frenzy and chaos would have ensued. He was 1000% correct hiding this from the Jedi. And even still, well, one, they were all already dead, so I don't really know what the point of it was anyway, but B, the entire conflict of this fucking episode, and by the way, the fights in this episode still suck, but I'll get back to that in a second. The emotional conflict of this episode is so convoluted. I don't know who's supposed to, like, is May supposed to be the good guy? Is Osha supposed to be the good guy? Is everybody an asshole and I want them all to die? Well, that part is mostly true. But again, for some reason, Sol is being painted as the villain here. And he's the only one that is worth rooting for. He's the only character that's likable, and he's the only one that's trying to do best for everybody here. Like, I don't know what the fuck Milo Ren's still doing here. I think he was here chasing May, but was he planning to kill her or use her as a bargaining chip? Because what happens at the end is that Osha goes off and trains with Milo Ren, and if you couldn't see that coming, you have the brain cell of a shoelace. And May is captured by the Jedi. And there's something else I need to talk about before I get into the fight scenes, and that's the really awful cameos. There's two. One of them is the very last shot of the episode is Yoda. Where was he during all of this? Apparently just sitting in his room doing fuck all. I needed to drink before getting into this next one, is the next one, just sitting in a cave on Smilo Ren's island, is Darth Plagueis. Does he do anything? No. Does he say anything? No. Does he interact with anybody? No. What does he do? He sits in a fucking cave for 5 seconds and is never shown again. Honestly, when the show was first announced, like, 3 years ago, I assumed that, but before anything came out about it, I thought the show was about Palpatine and Plagueis, because that was one of the main theories when the title was announced years and years ago. And I would have been excited to see something. I mean, my hype was obviously killed when it was announced that Leslie Headland was running the show, but when it was first announced and all the rumors came about that it was supposed to be about Palpatine and Plagueis, that was a moment of like, okay, maybe there'd be something to this, but as soon as Leslie Headland came aboard, I'm like, even if that's the story, they're gonna fuck it up. That's what she does. And I forgot what my point was, but yeah, with Plagueis, it's like, why is he even fucking here? What's he doing on this island? We'll never know. Were they going to set it up for season 2? Maybe, but this piece of shit isn't getting season 2. You really think this pile of trash is going to get a season 2? Hell, even all the shill sites are basically claiming that this show is not going to get a season 2, and it seems like Leslie Headland is kind of figuring out that she's out of a job as well. Although knowing Kathleen Kennedy, she'll get a permanent spot doing fuck all as a DEI hire. Because that's how companies work nowadays. Even the fucking Secret Service works that way. Ugh. So, emotional conflict doesn't work. Cameos are a huge needle in the ball sack. The effects still look no better than a goddamn fan film despite having a $180 million budget. What about the fight scenes? They're just as bad as the rest. The lightsaber fight is, again, incredibly mediocre and trying desperately to look like the prequels without having any of the skill or precision of the choreographers of the prequels. And especially in this one, there's a lot of just flailing the lightsabers around. It looks like garbage. There's even a point where they both, like, fall off a little bridge or something, and they just, like, slowly float to the ground. It's not in slow motion or anything, and they're not, like, using the Force or anything. They're just, like, slowly, like, Mary Poppins-ing their way to the ground. They're pulling a Yondu here. And it looks fucking silly. There's a hand-to-hand fight between May and Ocean, and not only is the split screen shots both obvious and not exactly the best laid out, the fight choreography is pretty shit too. Again, it's like every generic martial arts move you could possibly think of, and that's it. I honestly wouldn't have been surprised if that scene wasn't choreographed, and they just had Stenberg just flail around for a few minutes, then do the opposite on the other side of the camera in a different costume, and then we'll splice them together. That's kind of what it seemed like. But again, did anybody expect this episode to be... I'm honestly curious if people are still wondering if any of these episodes would be any good. Nothing fucking happens. Again, I made that comparison to Constipation earlier, and that wasn't just for a crude joke. It's fucking true. Nothing happens throughout this entire show. I feel like by the end of the episode, nothing was fucking accomplished, other than killing off the only likable character in this goddamn show, and killing off the real hero of the show that the show tries to paint as a fucking villain. This show is the end of Star Wars. I've seen people say so many times that something or other was the death of Star Wars. People say it was Last Jedi. People say it was Rise of Skywalker. People say it was, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Some say it was Mandalorian Season 3. Me, I still didn't think Star Wars was dead. I assumed Last Jedi was a fluke at the time, because I liked Force Awakens at the time. It's still okay. I still like Rogue One. Rebels is still good. So everything up to that point was decent. So I assumed that was a fluke, and then I liked Solo. Rise of Skywalker was the point of, that one wasn't really the death of Star Wars, because that was just a studio scrambling to try to make everybody happy, and in turn making nobody happy. That was just a lapse in judgment on their part. Disney Plus was the true death of Star Wars. I mean, the show started out perfectly fine. I mean, Mandalorian started fine. Season 7 of Clone Wars had 4 good episodes, 4 mediocre episodes, and 4 shit episodes. And then came The Mandalorian Season 3 and Obi-Wan Kenobi, both of which people said, okay, this is the point where Star Wars became a parody of itself. Obi-Wan Kenobi, especially with that 4th episode, with the frickin' mini-me disguise with Leia just under his jacket, fooling an entire fucking Imperial armada. Yeah, that was the point where Star Wars became a parody. And then that episode of Mandalorian Season 3, which was already shit, and even fans of The Mandalorian kind of were turned off by Season 3 by it becoming the Bo-Katan show. It became a parody again, where it had Lizzo and Jack Black, both of whom can go fuck themselves. And they were in that, and it was, again, it became a parody. This feels like and again, we've had good parodies of Star Wars, like Spaceballs, and a lot of TV show episodes have done funny parodies of Star Wars. Like, I don't like Family Guy, but the Star Wars episode is legitimately funny. This is not, I can't even call it a parody, because it's not funny bad. Like, it's insufferable. That's what this show is. It's insufferable to sit through, and it seems like nobody actually wants to sit through it. This thing couldn't even make the top 10 on the Nielsen ratings in its premiere, despite Disney touting how big its opening numbers were. Despite it's the biggest opening of 2024 for Disney Plus. I've said this several times already. What was its competition? X-Men 97, Doctor Who that can go fuck itself as well, Echo. Those were its biggest competitors so far. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that animated Spider-Man prequel ended up doing better than this show. Or that Agatha show, which I still don't understand why they're making, even though I liked WandaVision, but that I can see doing better than this pile of trash. Because that show, even if it sucks, it won't kill Marvel. Marvel has yet, even though they've tried with stuff like She-Hulk and the Marvels, Disney has yet to kill Marvel, but they are trying their asses off, and they have already destroyed Star Wars beyond repair. This is the final insult. This episode is again, not the final straw. Final straw was episode 3. This one is the final insult. This is, the person's already on the ground dead, and they're still just kicking them just because they find it funny. For some fucking reason. So this show isn't even worth scoring, just like, I guess like Percy Jackson, I could give it a Z-. But it's not even worth it for the show. Percy Jackson enraged me to no end. This one's just pathetic. So yeah, thankfully, that is probably all I will ever have for the ACOLYTE, probably unless a celebration video when this shit inevitably gets canceled. So until then, bye.